What's up, everybody? What's going on? Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Last week, we talked about the role of journalism in the era of Trump. We had a journalist on the show. And tonight, we have a PhD student, doctoral student on the show, none other than a connoisseur of hip-hop, my lion brother, the great Mario Lewis. You want to introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about yourself?
I don't know about great. I think I'm solid. Some days slightly above solid, but yes, as Hurston gave me a great introduction, my name is Mario D. Lewis. I hail from West Palm Beach, Florida. Proud Florida State alum, even before that, Palm Beach State College alum, and also just a first year PhD student, as in first year, second week PhD student. So I'd like to thank you all for welcoming us into your homes today, and without further ado, I guess we're gonna get started, bro.
Yeah, man. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. And this isn't your first time on Woke Wednesdays, so I appreciate you coming back to hang out with us.
I appreciate you inviting me back after the last fiasco.
We can call it a fiasco, I guess.
Yeah, but we learned and grew together.
We've learned and we've grown since. So if this is your first time tuning in, please feel free to post comments, ask questions. If you disagree with us, let us know why you disagree. If you just have some insight, please drop that on us as well. So please feel free to post, and I'll read it as we go along through the show. So tonight we're talking about hip hop, and we could take this conversation in so many ways, but I think it would make sense to kind of start at the beginning. Can you tell us, when did hip hop kind of start? What kind of led to it? And let's just talk about the beginning.
So the beginning of hip hop, it pretty much came out of Bronx, New York. The official date for the birth of hip hop is listed as August 11th, 1972.
72?
1972.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So,
okay.
Yes, for sure, facts. So, basically, it was bubbling, but what happened was the various factions around Bronx who were affiliating and working with the young art form, they came together at, I believe, DJ Kool Herc's block party. So DJ Kool Herc was I believe, of the Caribbean scene, of Jamaican scene, I believe he actually is. He was instrumental of helping pioneer the art form of being a DJ, at least. So he was instrumental of kind of putting things together and hosting these parties and things of that nature, and that specific day is when it's credited. Now, a lot of you might be thinking like, oh, that sounds like The Rundown. Well, yeah, that's why The Rundown was so significant, because The Rundown being a show that was unfortunately only lasted 2 seasons on Netflix.
The Get Down.
So I'm so sorry. Yes,
The
thank
Get Down.
you.
Yeah, The Get
Down. Rundown. Yeah, The Get Down. The Rundown is actually a movie with Sean Astin in the role. But I digress. Yeah. So with that being said, The Get Down was two season series on Netflix, and it pretty much talked about the humble beginnings of hip hop. But yeah, that's pretty much the history of it. So all those historical figures that you saw, like, those aren't fabricated fictional names. All those individuals actually existed.
So it's interesting that you're saying that it was a Jamaican man who kind of was a pioneer within hip hop, because when I guess everyday folk who don't know this type of history, I would have thought it was like very African American, as opposed to like a different diasporic kind of body.
Well, yes. For those who know, hip hop has its strong roots in reggae and hip hop music. Reggae and even dance hall music. Well, that's not to discredit funk, because a lot of those break beats came from funk, but that's also not to discredit the Latinos, the Latinx experience. So that's Afro Latinx as well as non-Afro Latinos as well. So a lot of those break beats, those individuals dance to, they came from salsa songs, things of those nature, but they just might have been slowed down and chopped up in certain parts. So there's a strong diasporic presence, if you will, the African diaspora. So you have Afro-Caribbean folk, Afro-Latino, Latinx folk, and of course you have African-American folk who contributed to the rise in the overall, the beginnings of the culture as well, and even throughout the years that followed.
So I'm glad you're saying this too, because there also seems to be like a class component to it, because you're saying it rose out of the Bronx. Yeah. And it was very poor communities. Yeah. Kind of coming together. It wasn't like the elite people. I don't even know if there were elite people in the Bronx. So it also rose out of a poverty, out of an oppression of sorts. If I'm understanding this.
For the most part, that's what my knowledge was for a lot of the early practitioners. Especially when we move into the late '80s, a lot of those individuals, some individuals were either affiliated with gangs or they used that as a form of warfare, as a form of battling, to kind of, as corny as it might say, to put down the guns, things of that nature. So when you think of African Mambata and the Zulu Nation, they were a nice alternative source for a lot of individuals who wanted to lead that lifestyle and transition in. So it didn't have to always culminate and end in violence. A lot of it really was like, yo, we finna battle right here. My DJ versus your DJ, my MC versus your MC, my crew B-boys versus your B-boys.
So real quick, we have a question from Attack. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce it. But this person's saying, I thought that hip-hop, not rap, but hip-hop was older than 1972.
And there's the debate. So a lot of people say, you've heard, blah, 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 it started in New York or Brooklyn. You've heard people say, well, if you think about it, Muhammad Ali was the first hip-hop artist. There are all types of dates for it and things of that nature. But I guess you could argue, and not that I discredit or disbelieve or don't believe your argument or have anything against it, but the most quote-unquote widely accepted date is 1972. But there are some historians who might say earlier. There's someone who has a great uncle who was in Brooklyn in 1957. We used to do that back in the day. It just varies. There's a lot of nuance to date sometimes. So that's a very valid point, though.
And it's interesting that you're saying that, because I was also talking about this older Nicaraguan, so my family's from Nicaragua in Central America, artist who is really just kind of a key figure of Nicaragua. And he's been an artist in music for over 50 years. He's over 75 years old. And he was talking to me that he was rapping. He said they didn't call it rap back then. And he was rapping prior to the 70s. But they didn't call it rap, and it had an indigenous kind of vibe to it. So it's also interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because we're also saying that this grew out of the United States, right? But we're also saying that it's a mesh of different...
It's amalgamation.
Amalgamation is a great word, of just cultures and ethnicities and rhythms and beats.
Mm-hmm. No, I was going to say, if I may too, there are different aspects of it as well. So some people might say, when you hear, I believe, jazz musicians begin to scat, that's a form of beatboxing. Mm-hmm. When you go back to the 1930s and you hear Cab Calloway go, hidey, 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 ho, at certain different swing and big band performances, that's a form of call and response. So you can make the argument that different elements have existed, but I think what a lot of historians, a lot of people who are around the culture say, the culture forming and becoming this more cohesive concept with the different elemental aspects under this umbrella of hip-hop, I think that's why you might see August 11th, 1972 listed as the date.
So what is it about that particular day? What happened on that particular day that it was this is the birth of hip-hop?
Because I believe, from what I understand, that was the turning point, or the fact is they realized that they had something big, but two, it united a lot of the youth at that time around this thing, and they clung to it, and it bought the whole block out. Usually when you do, neighborhoods I grew up on, usually when you can do anything to bring the whole block out and bring the whole block together, whether it's this one particular tenement, whether it's this one project, whether in that case it might have been a whole borough. I don't think it was the whole borough, but it was that project from that borough. It meant a lot, and I think it just kind of stuck from there. Now, there might be different variations of it, but from the few understandings I've had of hip-hop and getting to talk to people who are affiliated with the culture, and I guess you could say loosely historians, that's the logic they use to kind of justify it.
So, I'm so sorry that I'm butchering your name. Is saying that, yes, there are multiple arguments about the birth of hip-hop. I'm glad you brought up Ali, The Last Poets, the Kapoor songs that Brazilians miscalled Ladinas, Cab, but you just said Cab Calloway. So he's, I guess, kind of giving you credit, this person. So there seem to be some pillars maybe, or key things that comprise what we call hip hop. Yes. Because I love the distinction that this person also made, that it not rap but hip hop, right? So there's a distinction. Yes. And also someone else, Chaos 222, is saying that hip hop started with DJ Herc.
DJ Cool Herc.
And real quick, let me read one more comment. Attack is saying, yes, I respect that argument about the elements of hip hop coalesced into a recognizable unit. Well said, even though heads will seriously argue about the Brooklyn origin. I guess old heads.
Yeah, OGs definitely do that.
So what makes hip hop? And we're getting in real quick, we're setting up a context. If you're just joining us, I see a lot of new people are getting on. If you're just joining us, we're setting up a context, and we're going to lead into the role of hip hop and activism, overlaps with misogyny. We're going to get into this stuff, but right now we want to set up a context, kind of build a foundation for the rest of the episode. And then Chelsea, little sis, is saying, brief lesson from Professor Lewis, quite dapper. He is. I'm not. Yeah.
It's not even Tuesday.
It's not even a Tuesday. Oh, no, I'm not talking. Anyways, so please. Shout out to the bros. So what comprises hip hop? What makes up hip hop?
Okay, so I believe from an elemental standpoint, I'm sure the heads who are on here, clearly shout out to the heads who are following tonight and tuning in. So 4 is what I've been taught, but I've heard the argument made for 5, and I can never remember that hypothetical 5th one. So you have MCing, so that actual art of being on that microphone and being able to rock the crowd through rhymes, through freestyle, whatever it may be, just being able to rock that crowd. DJing, get behind the ones and twos, and actually getting behind the ones and twos and getting on vinyl. I had nothing against Serato.
What's Serato?
So Serato, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, I wanted to be a DJ, but I was too poor to do it. So it's being able to mix with either it's basically digitally doing it. So whether it's through audio files, or I think at one point you could even do like CDs that kind of like mesh with the instruments that you were using or the turntables you were using, but actually being able to take a 12-inch vinyl or whatever and being able to scratch with it. That holds a lot more cachet weight in the community. So there's that. Graffitiing, simple put, straightforward. Being able to control a can of spray paint and being able to tab, being able to design all that stuff, and of course breaking. So those are like the 4 most common elements you hear of. Please, if you know the 5th one or the legendary, infamous 5th one, it's like this is a magical Pokemon who appears every once in a while. But if you know it, please chime in, let me know, because I damn sure can't remember.
So real quick, so I appreciate you spelling it out phonetically for me. Attacks Jim Capoeira, Capoeira, I'm guessing in the Brazilian. He's saying, or Portuguese, he's saying that he was told 10 elements create hip hop. Top 5: DJ, rap, graffiti, beatbox, b-boying / breaking. So that could be maybe another element.
Yeah, I think that's the one I most commonly heard. I have not heard the 10. I've traditionally, especially because I ran with the shout out to Cyber Hip Hop Culture Club. We were a crew back in Tallahassee back in the day, still there loosely. So that's what we came up on, those 4s and the occasional 5th.
So hip hop is fairly new, right? It's fairly
compared to other American
definitely compared
we are
to
the
other.
baby.
Probably the youngest. No.
House, techno, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And y'all, please feel free to post comments and ask questions. Please feel free to challenge what we're saying or agree. Right. So what do you think it was about hip hop that kind of? So you said 1972, August 11th, right? August 11th.
Yes, sir.
Was its birth date. What do you think kind of kept it alive? Because I could be wrong, but didn't a lot of older people just didn't approve of this, I guess, art form that was coming out. Some folks said that it wasn't going to last maybe very long. So what do you think it was that it resonated? Like, what do you think would happen there?
I think it captured the youth. So as we know, especially as youth, there are things that we did earlier years ago, even now currently as youth, that we don't do. But it managed to stick, and I think because it captured what we might say the zeitgeist. So the dominant thoughts or the dominant feelings of expression during that era. I mean, you had the old heads who might have had their doo-wop, their blues, their jazz, but then you had this new creation, but specifically this creation that was being used as an outlet. And I think that's where those elements come in that was developing this structure over time. So I believe that being able to capture that zeitgeist, that feeling, that aura, that being, that sentiment, that the things that existed during the time, especially during the Bronx in the early 1970s, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of gang violence, a lot of crime. The heroin addicts were about to be at an all-time high in the mid to late 70s. It just captured all that, not to mention what it meant to be a quote-unquote person of color in that time being. But I think there's always something powerful when you can say, yo, this is for us. As corny as it sounds, I hate to go to a FUBU reference of 2018.
I was just about
for us, by us. This is something that we created that resonated with us. And at the time, even though we might have thought they ain't gonna take this, and Lord knows what the 80s did, they damn sure did. It was something that we had control over. And on top of that, sometimes it's just cool because my parents don't understand it. That makes me want to do it even more. They don't understand it, they don't like it, so you guarantee I'm gonna gravitate towards it. So I think that conglomerate of different things coming together, it created this dope ass art form that was able to thrive into the 70s, late 70s, into the 80s, 90s, so on and so forth.
And part of the cool thing, of course, I'm gonna gravitate towards this is that this FUBU concept, right? For us, by us, but the us I think is so important, especially when we talked about activism and intersectional activism, which is something that we're both kind of big on. That it wasn't just this African American, Black American experience that influenced this and was foundational. It was a lot of Caribbean, right?
Yes.
I know there's a lot of Puerto Rican, maybe Dominican influence, Jamaican influence.
Yes.
That is so, I think, important, right? Especially in a place like New York, where it's probably more. I think Miami's more of like, because we're in Miami, we're more of like a salad bowl, kind of like where it's like you're here, I'm there. But it seems like in this poor, just kind of area, you have all these cultures kind of mixing. It's very melting potish. Right, which is dope, like a gumbo of sorts, right? Real quick, I want to read what Taxim Capoeira said was part of the 10 elements, the forgotten 5 is what this person's calling it. Martial arts, politics, chess, fashion, and individual uniqueness cannot follow or copy another style. Fort Lauderdale Alpha's hashtag Red Cup. I'm not sure what that means. Oahead said that it would be a fad. Attacked him a couple words saying, I came up on hip hop in 1978 when I saw my cousin poppin'. Never saw poppin' before. I saw Lock-In for the first time round about that time. And Chaos 222 saying hip hop was never a fad but a teachable tool. Go Serena. Yeah, and
I agree.
Attaching a couple words saying mad Caribbean influence, also mad Antilles influence, right? The Greater Antilles, probably. So this is super dope. Like when we talk about hip hop, art, music, because hip hop seems to encompass just so many this kind of facets, which is dope. And maybe here's a personal question: what was something? I think you alluded to a little bit. What got you stuck on hip hop? Because you were now born late 80s, probably started listening to hip hop maybe mid 90s to right late 90s. What was it that kind of, hey, this is cool?
No, that's a great question. It's always like one of those things that's so romanticized. You're like, yo, my first album I bought was Blase. And please feel free to go ahead and drop the first hip hop album you dropped in the
what was the first song that kind of hit y'all? First album? Go ahead, please.
I think because I'm a product of the era I was in, thinking about that particular era of hip hop, I think it expressed me so much. I think there were certain aspects of it that even at a young age I knew I could go bump Tupac, not just singles but album cuts, and just escape, the shitty situation that I was in. And I think just to go back in the 1970s, it was also that. I don't know if that came through clearly. Like, yo, we living in fucking hell on. Sorry, we living in fucking hell on earth.
Please cuss.
So like it escaped. It allowed a sense of escapism. But then again, on top of that, while I was escaping these individuals, somehow, ironically, at the same time, still speaking to what I was going through. So and I think just in general, I don't know if you had a doctor to talk about. I have a bias towards Southern hip hop, although Southern hip hop or Southern hip hop artists. Because that's primarily what I was raised on. That's what I heard.
What would be some artists that comprise that?
Well, you can make the argument now that quote unquote regionalism is dead because of the parity that's in hip hop. Now everyone has hi-hats, snares, 808s, and bass extortion and
what's
melodies.
an 808?
808 is basically the electronic drums, basically.
Okay.
So everyone has those things. You can make the argument. So I've heard also. So basically, I was alluding to the fact that I feel like the argument can be made that regionalism is dead to an extent. Besides, I rep the South, I rep the Midwest, the North now. Things a lot, Drake.
So
like
quick question then. So real quick, Push Play is signing on, throwing out the Phi. That's our line brother, our Deuce. So if I understand this correctly, you're saying that certain parts of the country kind of claimed a region as in a hip hop sense, right? So this is the West, this is the East, this is the South, and part of that claiming was also the instrumentation that went along with it. So like this place had like maybe a harder kick, snare, or hi hat than this place, and hi hat and snares are just parts of a drum set, just to kind of be clear. Yeah. And Fort Lauderdale Alpha is saying some of the first people that influenced them was Tupac, Outkast, and Goody Mob.
Goody mob.
What is it? Goody mob? Goody mob. English is my second language, so hey, we're about to figure it out. Goody mob. Amber saying for me, it was more of the TV shows that drew me into hip hop culture. Interesting.
I like that.
Yeah. What TV shows in particular? But so, and while she's answering that, so what? It was that a right assumption, like that there were certain like drum beats or drum parts that were maybe more emphasized in certain parts of the country.
To a degree, yeah. And this is a conversation we've never even had personally.
No, yeah.
Just talking about.
And this is dope because I'm a musician, so I appreciate this. Yeah.
So with that being said, the birthplace being in the Bronx, like that's always like, that's the birthplace. We've always had respect for that. And this is where the debate comes in about history, and this is where interpretation comes on. It was East Coast dominated. So in East Coast pretty much being like New York kind of had the juice, and it ran with an iron fist. So you hear a lot of old artists from the West and the South, maybe even the Midwest and other areas of the country. If you wasn't from the East, you wasn't getting played. So when NWA and lots of other factions and groups and entities from the West hit, that was a big deal. That's why one of the reasons they caught on like wildfire. And even then, the introduction of gangster rap, it was appealing. And even if you didn't live it, it was like, yo, I see this. And it was just something so new and different. Like, who are these dudes in these black tees with these black Raider hats and these Jerry curls yelling straight out of Compton? Like, what is this? Along those same lines, a few years later, like, yo, who are these dudes with these goals and talking Goody Mob and who is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is all this? You know what I'm saying? What are these heavy soul samples and all this? And like, even though soul and funk has always been sampled in other forms of other regions as well, like the way Organized Noise was doing it. Nobody else was doing that. Organized Noise was a production group, or production unit, and they produced for Goody Mob, they produced for Outkast, Slim Calhoun, Cool Breeze. They produced for the whole Dungeon family, which pretty much all made up that collective everyone I just mentioned. And they produced for TLC, they produced for a lot of individuals. But each area kind of bought its own distinctive style. And shout out to the Midwest when I think of Common, Do or Die, Twister, like,
you alluded to NWA earlier, right?
Yeah, the West Coast. That's the West Coast. Midwest, like Illinois, Milwaukee, all that good stuff.
So
Michigan.
I have like so many questions, right? About because you just said a lot. But real quick, Amber saying A Different World, Moesha, hanging with Mr. Cooper, were some of the people that kind of influenced. My little brother just got on.
Shout out to Hersh's little brother.
Yeah, he's a big fan of Mario. So I'm trying to process everything that you just said.
That's a lot.
Right?
My apologies, y'all.
no, because you said a lot right now. So when and y'all, please feel free to ask questions, or else I'm gonna take up all the time, because I always say that Woke Wednesdays is like a selfish endeavor because I get to ask a bunch of questions and learn this guy.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So when did the West kind of come? Because I'm guessing that was the next kind of group that came out, right? First it was the Bronx, East Coast, or we could just say the Bronx, because it wasn't like
the Bronx,
Boston or like New Hampshire was getting this shit, right? It was
New Hampshire.
I mean, so
there's a thriving New Hampshire
there are particular areas within regions, right? So we have the Bronx, and then when did the West that was the next kind of group to kind of come in?
Yeah, I believe it's spread throughout. And once again, there's I know history to an extent, and I know anecdotal history as well. So I'm not gonna be like in 1983 and 84, like so. Let's contextualize it like that. But like, what are you doing? Like,
I hope y'all are enjoying a drink. It's been a long day for me, so I hope y'all are also enjoying a good drink tonight as we kind of share thoughts, engage in good conversation.
This is what got us in trouble the first time. We're not gonna relive that moment.
We're not gonna do that. Real quick, Push Play saying West Coast, NWA, DJ Quick, Corrupt, Snoop, Pop, Mac 10. Yeah. So these are people that I don't even know who. I've never heard of Tupac before. So these are people that I've never heard before. So I appreciate you. And Razel Catter is asking what the theme is tonight. Talking about hip hop, setting a foundation, and we're gonna get into hip hop and activism, and definitely hip hop and misogyny, patriarchy, sexism. We're about to jump into that, but right now we're just kind of setting up this context. So when did the West Coast kind of get in, just kind of come on the scene?
Late 80s, as far as what I've always heard and things of that nature, what I've been told. late 80s. Someone believes we had a specific year when they dropped their first album or they first dropped. Please drop in the comments. But that's what it's credited with. But fun fact, the first quote-unquote gangster rap single was like actually Schoolie D from Philly. So it was an East Coast artist who actually dropped the first gangster rap single. At least from what I've been taught, from what I've told, from what my OGs told me. But it's interesting because obviously it gets the introduction of it often the credit to NWA and the West Coast, things of that nature.
So this is like a really like maybe random but very pertinent question. Is slang part of like the pillars of hip hop? I know we didn't mention that, but could it be considered maybe one, like just slang?
I think from a linguistic standpoint, it's definitely paired on that because we don't. Because, I mean, and of course you know this, we don't go from, talking in vernaculars and certain dialects to automatically speaking the Queen's English, especially on records. So I think it's very much inherently predicated on that. So, when you hear Migos talk about the bando, or you hear Gucci talking about chirping, or birds, this, that, and the other, or when you hear Plies say bit, those are very much so colloquialisms that we use and engage in on a daily.
Yeah. So it seems that even the slang is obviously it's going to be pertinent to your region. So
yes, and I always wanted to study that.
I'm from North Carolina, so crunk, like when that word came out,
you still use it,
and every day, that was a word that you couldn't find a person not saying this word like back home. Like this, everybody was dropping this. So I'm saying that it's very. I'm assuming it's very. I'm surprised it's not considered like a pillar or the key component.
Yeah, I don't think people got into the nitty gritty like that. I think a lot of times when you hear it's more so the performance of hip hop. So even though that does tie in, you could say it could be a subset of MCing, arguably, but it's not a concrete pillar unto itself.
Real quick, Push Play is saying you can appreciate slang with Big L and his record Ebonics. He was from Harlem. He's saying rest in peace.
Shout out to Big L. He was gonna be a problem. Ooh, anyway, I digress.
So it's crazy because I'm just like all this is like new information to me. So to the West Coast, you're saying late 80s. That's kind of when they kind of made an intro. Now, what class? So now you said you used the term gangster rap, right? Which assumes that there are different forms, or maybe like subcultures within hip hop, right? Which I'm assuming that's what you're saying. So, what are other maybe subgenres within hip hop?
So, of course, for a brief period of time, you had crunk. For a brief period of time, you had snap music. You have trap music. You have gangster rap. You have boom bap. Of course, gangster rap, as we just mentioned. You have quote-unquote conscious rap. You have backpack rap. You have one of the more common ones that you hear about arguing today was mumble rap. So there are different variations, although mumble rap is stigmatized as being extremely negative. I personally do enjoy some forms of mumble rap, and this is where I lose a lot of people. I think if I can still decipher the message of what you're saying, then I'll run with it. And I think that's that's always been problematic for some people. But as long as you can make me nod my head, and tap my feet, you might even catch me quoting lyrics from time to time, then I don't have a problem with it per se. And just in addition, like at the age of 30, I just hit 30 last month. So it's like I'm not going to persecute people for what I was doing or possibly listening to the equivalent of 10 years ago. I'm not going to do that.
And so we have a question real quick, and I want to get to what you just said. Sure. Snap rap, like what is that?
Lean with it, rock with it.
Oh, that would be considered snap rap. Oh, okay.
You still listen. It's on your playlist now.
Okay. And it is. I just listened to it earlier today. Which is interesting too because we have like classics, right? If You Buck comes on, then it's. You played it this morning when I was trying to study, like
with no shame whatsoever.
With no shame whatsoever. But there are classics, right? That still clearly live on. I don't know if you. So we've already been talking for 30 minutes. I thought we were talking for 5 minutes. So let's get into. So I hope this begins to set up a context. Clearly, we could talk a lot more about just setting the foundation for hip hop. And Amber saying, I thought that was too literal as far as the snap rap. So
I feel you, Amber. Facts.
So this idea of like conscious rap, I feel like, and let me know please if I'm wrong. I feel like the term conscious rap is actually fairly new, like that label of conscious rap. But it seems that since its inception, And it's funny how we're conflating now rap with hip hop, right? That's also interesting, right? Because we don't talk about conscious DJing, conscious graffiti, conscious breaking. We don't talk about that. But we talk about conscious rap, which I think oftentimes gets conflated with or being synonymized with hip hop. Please tell me if I'm wrong.
I think, you also said a lot, so I'm trying to unpack it all. I think a lot of earlier rap was inherently conscious, because remember I said that it was...
Yep, I was just thinking that.
Exactly. So it was reporting on what these individuals were seeing. The message in the early 1980s, I apologize, don't revoke my hip-hop card, I can't remember the year, but the message, by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, like, that was a song, like, that held a conscious reference. A lot of earlier hip-hop was conscious, but along the way, I think the message changed. And hip hop had more "quote unquote" nuance and differentiation. So, especially as it began to spread throughout different boroughs, spread throughout different regions. Some people who had different viewpoints were engaging in it. So much different things were brought to it. I would like to challenge what the word conscious ideally means. When I listen to Future March Madness, you could say, "What? That's a dope song." I think to a certain degree, like, it is conscious. It depends on what your definition of consciousness is. Just because you don't like it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't fall into a certain classification or category.
And this is why I like you, because...
Not because we're LBs or anything like that. Because I use multi-syllable words, people. That's why you like it.
In this context of hip-hop, because you have an objectivity to you, which is difficult to have when it comes to something that you're passionate about, right? Real quick, Amber saying... and I want to get to what you're saying, but some people are commenting what you're saying.
Please comment, please.
Amber saying, had this discussion a while ago. What elements would you both consider makes up a rap song, as far as beats, tempo, flow, lyricism, etc.? So this is a very nuanced question. Very nuanced question as far as what makes up a rap song.
I think everything that Amber just listed, I'd even throw in cadence, because cadence/flow, because when I think of the infamous Migos flow that got adopted, everybody and their mother was doing it. And I think that counted for something. But that again also goes to talk about the parody that exists in hip hop, where it was predicated on the early days. I'm gonna go back to what Amber was saying, where originality was key. Like, you would straight up get hands put on, you would get thrown off stage, KRS-One and PM Dawn, look at the situation. If people felt you were whack, if people felt that you were biting styles, like, you would get hemmed up. So that's interesting to see how the game has changed so much. But going back, I think all those things mix it up. I think it's, who am I critiquing like that, and when am I doing the critiquing? If I'm at a social exchange event sipping on Henny at 11:37 p.m., I'm not. Juvenile has a great flow and back that ass up. It's quite marvelous, actually. The way he calls her a big fine woman, the lack of multi-syllable. I'm not doing that shit. However, when I'm listening to J. Cole, when I'm listening to Kendrick. Oh, I could be petty. I ain't gonna do that. When I listen to J. Cole,
please be petty, please.
No, and I'm gonna be real. Like, I love Kung Fu King. Like, and I might be jumping the gun here. That's horrible verbiage. But I might be getting ahead of myself here. But my three artists that I rock with contemporarily are in no particular order: J. Cole, Kendrick, and Big Crit. Some days I have more affinity to Big Crit because I just find him the most relatable. Like Kung Fu Kenny or Kendrick or K-Dot, whatever you want to call him. I do feel like, yes, he can be a great lyricist at times, but I do feel sometimes he relies on the double time flow. And I believe Kanye, don't turn off the feed yet. Kanye had like a great point about that, like, dog, just because you rap fast don't really mean you saying shit.
Well, so is Twista a person who would be?
No, Twista gets busy. Twista crazy.
Okay.
He gets busy. No, he gets busy.
Okay.
But that's one of my critiques on a kid sometimes. Like, just because you play with your voice and do this, that, and the other. But that's also my critique of hip hop fans. I won't say that. But the not holding the artist accountable or just running with the narrative, like, he's amazing. But I'm like, clearly, his own, like, I've heard plenty of songs with Black Hippie where J-Rock washed the entire group, washed his out rap. But you hear like, yo, do you hear that Kendrick verse? I'm like, he just did double time flow and played with his verse. He didn't say anything.
So,
in my opinion.
What's a double time flow?
Just speed it up.
Okay. Gotcha,
So gotcha. There might be some double time flow, and depending on how they structure it, which is dope in and of itself. But once again, I need you to literally say something of substance. But then again, I'll be contradicting myself. The substance it's subjective.
But it's also context, right? Because you just said we'd be at a party sometimes. I'm not a person who listens to words. Like, I just don't. Like, and for some reason, hip hop, especially lyrics,
he doesn't listen to the album cuts.
They don't stick with me.
He likes singles, by the way.
And yeah, I'm not a hip hop fan. I can't consider myself a fan. like I'm probably like a bandwagon fan, like a radio fan, and I think that's an important distinction, because then you talk to someone like Mario, who is a fan of the genre. I'm a fan of salsa music. I can talk to you about 70s salsa, 60s. I can go there with you. So to me, to like call yourself a fan, I think is a very serious like label. But real quick, Chelsea, your little sister, saying you're petty as fuck for playing Nuck If You Buck while I was studying. I agree with you, Chelsea.
Why you gotta start a struggle?
Ray L Scatter saying conscious rap like The Roots, Common, Tupac, Talib Kweli. Talib Kweli. Katrina just joined us. Push Play saying, what about songs like Self Destruction by KRS-One or Harlem Streets by Immortal Technique with pure direct messages in society? And then Amber saying, you better educate the masses, Mario. Clapping it up for you. Yeah. So when it comes, so let's get after it real quick. Clearly we're not always trying to listen to this social conscious type of shit. Like we're not always trying to do that, correct? Or are you always trying to be socially conscious?
Goddamn not.
All right.
Absolutely not.
One of my guilty pleasures is like the Nasty song, right?
Why do you have to feel guilty about that being a pleasure? That's one of the conversations.
Or maybe it's part of the conversation.
Oh, is it?
Right, because we're talking about misogyny and consciousness, and like I've been at a party where someone like came up to me and was like, "Hey," like she was talking about my fraternity, our fraternity, saying, "Hey, y'all about like ostensibly purporting respecting women." And then this Nasty song talking about a lot of shit, demeaning, condescending, sexist, misogynistic type of shit. And it was like, damn. One part of me was like, I'm just trying to enjoy the song. I'm vibing out, having a good time. The other part of me was like, well, what's my responsibility when it comes to me being called out on this or held accountable? To me, it was a very just kind of slippery slope. So what do you think?
I think.
And what do y'all think? Please, what do y'all think?
I think we all pick and choose to compartmentalize. We have certain scenarios, because if that's the case, then we would all be living in burlap bags out in the middle of the Everglades, because we don't want to be a part. We don't want to shop at Walmart. We don't want to be a part of this capitalist society. We don't to constantly to have that burden of having to be aware of all the isms and archies that exist. It would be too much of a burden. I recognize that it's problematic, but I also realize that hip hop is performative to a certain degree. And also, this is where it gets tricky, because I'm trying to choose my words, but be honest. Us still being at that party and still vibing to whatever was being played and not walking out, or at least challenging the DJ, you could argue, that's not there was no protest in the essence, you could arguably say. So my thing is, we all choose ways in which we pick, choose, and or protest. Now, I'm not knocking the young one by any means, but we all compartmentalize, and we all pick and choose to engage in certain endeavors. So your form of protest might be saying, hey, what you and your fraternity brother do to this song is very problematic. Your form of protest might be like, I'm not going to shop at Walmart because they support the prison industrial complex, and they also do not support their workers in many ways in regards to labor wages, in regards to unionization, whatever it may be. You have to, not have to, but that's one way in which I pick or choose, or do not pick or choose to protest.
So
what's up?
So, and I want to read this comment, but I just want to respond and kind of play devil's advocate here, because it's something that I think about, and I think we both think about this a lot. So, as a man, right, as cisgendered heterosexual men, it's one thing to talk about like a capitalist society, right? Because that hurts everyone in different ways, and posting. This is tough because I don't even, and I'm glad people are seeing that I'm stumbling through this, because this is tough. This is tough.
This is what students do.
This is what students do, but this is what people who care about this stuff. We stumble through these things, right? We don't always have the language. As men, do we have maybe a bigger responsibility to protest and walk out when it comes to issues of patriarchy and misogyny as it pertains to styles of music? And real quick, I want to be explicit, I want to be super clear that hip hop is the genre that is vilified and demonized for misogyny, patriarchy, sexist, just kind of work, lyrics, beats, whatever. When country music does it. Country music does it. Salsa does it. Bachata, merengue. In fact, with merengue albums and bachata albums, especially the 90s ones, they would always have women like on their album covers half naked, only to objectify them in a sexual way, right? Rock music has been doing it since its inception. Every other genre, jazz music has done it. So I want to be very clear and explicit about this. But tonight, since we are talking about hip hop, we're gonna talk about it. But I also do think it's an anti-blackness kind of sentiment that ends up that, and hip hop ends up being vilified, right?
Sure.
Please say something.
We asked a loaded question, and then
yeah.
low-key touched on
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So, especially as heterosexual cisgendered men, do you have a certain responsibility? I would say to a degree, but I also say that every space cannot be safe, and that's the I want to say unfortunate. That is the reality of it. And I think there's a certain level of performativity that is existence there, where I think many women, or just I would say individuals who do not identify as cis heterosexual men, would say that, hey, I understand that these are not necessarily the views of these individuals, and that they are engaging in a certain dialogue. And there might be some individuals saying, I don't mind the song. In addition to that, I actually do think it's a solid song. Or this song allows for me to dance and be free and not think of that same shit that you're trying to fight right now. So I think it's a very multifaceted thing. When it comes to patriarchy, I have some interesting views on patriarchy and power. I do believe there's a such concept as hegemonic patriarchy. I do believe that just because I identify as a man, I think there are certain identities at play that problematize that, especially in the intersectional critiques. So that kind of, I won't say muddles, but that makes it an extremely layered thing to debate. So, but I do believe that possibly to a degree. But once again, like I said, not every space can ideally, quote unquote, be safe, or one where everything can be considered.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the reality behind something.
And maybe, and I'm just thinking about this, like a reappropriation is big, right? In any type of disenfranchised community, right? Whether LGBTQ and the F word, the way this word has been reappropriated within that community, right? So they can call it the N word reappropriated, certain types of clothing and ways of speech, reappropriation. So maybe even, right? Women also dancing, people who identify as women dancing to this type of music, having a good time is maybe a type of reappropriation too, right? For that genre. I mean, I don't know. This is just me just kind of thinking.
It could also be drunk.
It could also be that, and sometimes people just want to have a good time. Sometimes we ain't trying to do all that thinking. We have, especially as communities that are disenfranchised, we do all that thinking anyways, like 24/7. Sometimes you're just trying to have a good time. And that might be too simple of an answer, but that's kind of what it is.
No, I completely agree, and I don't want to butcher that ball code. You probably know it. To be black and aware, or to be aware of your blackness, is like a constant state of a perpetual madness.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I need an escape away or romanticized situation or detachment, and that's my way of doing it. The intent. Now we know intent impact two different concepts. But sometimes the intent is not to cause any harm. It's just to play music. I'm sorry, Taylor.
So let me read some of these comments real quick. Ray L. Scatter is saying, like how bad is Biggin Head by Cardi B? Lots of statements are problematic, but you have to let go of the burden for personal well-being. Push Play saying, just because artist says something in a song doesn't mean I represent what he is saying. As a DJ, this is also a job. Oh man,
interesting dynamic.
Joe, I wish you would have been here, man. As a DJ, but you want to leave us. As a DJ, if I pick and choose songs, I will be out of business. This is interesting, Joe. Please, why'd you have to leave? Ray L. Scatter saying every genre is objectifying women, and definitely hip hop is vilified because black people are vilified. Yeah, for sure.
It's like you saying black people of color, because we all contribute to the culture. It's interesting.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean,
I'm not knocking you, but it's funny you keep saying black people.
Yeah. Wait. Well, so explain a little bit more.
No. What I mean, just contextualize it. I'm not knocking anybody. Please don't be offended. Yeah. But I'm just saying black, because even after we talk about the historical culture, the historical aspects of culture of hip hop culture, but we know that multiple people of color and that groups of races consume it. but yet we keep saying black people, black people. But I get the logic behind doing so.
Yeah.
But Latino individuals, I mean, Asian community, they're even Asian artists.
Yeah, especially on the West Coast, right?
Across the world, really across the world.
Oh yeah.
Like Japan, like has a strong
B-boy
hip-hop
too.
community.
B-boy culture is
huge. I believe it's South Korea at one point had the best B-boys in the world.
Yeah. And I think this goes to, and this might be another episode, the narrative around blackness, right?
What's up?
How Brian Stevenson, phenomenal attorney.
Please look him up.
I mean, he's from, I think, Alabama. He is, or Mississippi. Is it Mississippi?
My bad.
I want to say it's Alabama.
Yeah.
Doing phenomenal work, right, for the culture. Mm-hmm. He talks about one of the worst things that came out of slavery was the narrative around blackness, right? The pictures that are painted, the ideas that are perpetuated, the stereotypes that are embraced and created. So narratives are so important. They can also be so dangerous. Because you can have someone like Maro dressed up and all this stuff, but to the person now, the wardrobe is irrelevant because the narrative is stronger than the wardrobe, than the sartorial, if you will. And
to quote Kanye real quick, even if you're in the Benz, you're still a nigga in the coupe.
Yeah,
even if you're in the Benz, you're still a nigga in the coupe. Like that's Kanye from All Falls Down.
This is older Kanye, I'm assuming. Recent Kanye might have some different words. But even Jay-Z on his on the one album, really talking to young people about investing and being financially responsible.
Yeah.
Also get after it, right?
Yeah.
It is also interesting though, right? Because non-black people listening to hip hop, the N-word is very much a part of hip hop culture. And maybe that's a different question, but real quick, Push Play saying wow. I'm assuming because I said that you should have never left, but that's between you and your God. Rail Scatter is saying women need to be more confident. Men need to listen better and call each other out on objectifying women. Oppression, lateral violence, stereotypes, appropriation, etc. Sounds like Rail Scatter. Oh, your name, Rail Scatter. Okay, thank you so much. What should the narrative around race be? How do we make them better? Okay, that's like a huge loaded. That's like a whole dissertation. The narrative around race.
Well, you would know, huh?
Yeah, finally got a dissertation topic, man. Finally.
That's like major.
That's
like major.
That's huge, man.
I can leave one day.
That's huge. So we have 10 minutes left, and I feel like, do y'all want us to? I mean, would you be okay with kind of going like a couple more minutes?
Let us know in the comments. Let us know how y'all feel in the comments.
Yeah, let us know how y'all feel.
Within the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. Let us know. Do y'all want us to keep on talking? Because I feel like we haven't even gotten into it, like the way I really want to get after it. I think we're just kind of starting. So my line brother, my Deuce, your line brother, your Deuce, is saying you are worse than the Shade Room.
Oh.
I don't see Instagram pages. I don't see color. I don't see genders. I don't see Instagram pages. So I don't even know what that means. But yeah, let us know if y'all want us to keep on going. We will. And we'll probably keep on going, even if the camera isn't on. Amber saying another hour, please. Okay, so see now.
Damn, she said another hour.
That's a lot.
Amber.
Yeah, so let's. Hold on. How long do we have left? Let me see here. It's 9:50. Okay, so we'll say 9 minutes. So misogyny. So when we talk about white people being complicit in a racist system, we in a systemic racist type of way, right? In the sense that they privilege off a system that benefits white people. We tend to say they are complicit, right, when they are only non-racist and not anti-racist. Does that make sense so far? If they're non-racist, no, if they're anti-racist, if they're non-racist, then they are complicit. If they're anti-racist, then they're trying to deconstruct, right, systems of oppression.
They're actively trying to undo those.
So when it comes to men and patriarchy and misogyny and sexism, is hip hop a way to deconstruct that? I'm not. Now, notice I'm saying hip hop. I'm not saying the party.
Yeah.
I'm saying hip hop. Can hip hop be used as a way to deconstruct that?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but yeah, like it's simple as that. It can definitely be used as a tool because it's been used as a tool to educate masses. It's been used as a tool to divide the masses. When I think of the quote unquote East Coast West Coast beef, it's been used as a tool to divide regions at certain points. People have played into it, so I think it's a tool that could definitely have that potential because it sets societal narratives. We saw it. People were running around in baggy jeans, and people were getting grills in 05, 06 that you from the middle. Y'all couldn't afford to go to the flea and get the $5 and $6 grills. You had the $20 grills from the kiosk in the middle of the mall. Why was that? Because that goddamn god awful Nelly song. But anyway, it's enough of mine.
Bro, back home in North Carolina, dudes like had band-aids on their faces. And I was like, I remember my boy Desmond, and I was like, yo, Des, like, what? Like, I didn't know about this stuff. I'm like, bro, like, did you cut your face? Like, what happened? And he's like, just laughed at me. Like, he's like, him and Brandon, other than Brandon, they both had, like, I'm like, were y'all like shaving together? Like, what happened? Bro, I had no idea what that stuff meant. And the impact of hip hop
is monumental.
Monumental, and that's a question that maybe for the next hour, because that is also a loaded question. The impact of hip hop, not just in how I dress, jerseys. I mean, Nelly came out and everybody wanted to have a basketball jersey.
That 02 through about 04 until Jay, and we also want to talk about a culture, people in the culture who can change the tide of the culture. In Jay-Z, when Jay-Z dropped Change Clothes, everybody wanted to run around in polos and button-ups. He got a shot at Kanye as well. Kanye, God. But anyway, just to go back real quick, the reason Nelly wore the Band-Aid, for those that don't know the story, he had a brother who was incarcerated, City Spud. So he's like, I'm not going to take out the Band-Aid until he comes home. He came home some years ago. I don't remember when. Somebody probably knows. Yeah. So the Band-Aid died out of it.
Yeah. Actually know it.
Good for you.
Push is asking, how is NC when PD Pablo dropped Raise Up?
That's all you play this. You know, this is all you.
I literally play this song every time I come back home. So because
every time we go out to Wynwood, or the Grove, or to fraternal function.
North Carolina is the type of place. I find you to be a disrespectful person.
I know. I am.
You to be a disrespectful person.
Push is my dude. Of course, I'm disrespectful. The whole line.
Well, Push is the ace of disrespect.
So you just stop. Go ahead. We're not gonna have a repeat of February.
But North Carolina went crazy, man. North Carolina went crazy. If you didn't know who P.D. Pablo was, I didn't know his music. Like, white kids were rapping this, which gets me to another kind of question.
Hour 2 question. Go ahead.
You know what? It's 9:54. I'm gonna end it here. I'm gonna end it, and we're gonna restart.
Come back now.
Come back, y'all. Come back. We're about to get into it. I'm gonna ask more difficult questions to Mario pertaining to race, gender, sexuality, because we also see a lot of homophobia, right? Within all genres, but tonight we're talking about hip hop. So we're gonna ask some more difficult questions. So if you'd like to learn and grow with us, please tune in the next couple minutes. Thanks, y'all.
Yes, invite your friends too.
Yep.